Hi there, welcome to Here We Go. I'm your host Scrivo, and this week we're going to talk about teams, joining a mob, being part of a gang, maybe part of a bigger clan, who knows. So this one, bit of a skew into the teams format because this previous weekend I was at the Birmingham International Teams Tournament. I took Orks, so we'll be discussing how Orks play in the teams format, so what their role will be, the list I took, and also how it did. So quite simple. The thing I was kind of approaching with this was get myself back into Orks. So I hadn't played 40k Orks outside of a couple of Crusade games in 10th edition. The indexed attachment didn't really sing to me. It was very much, I didn't like quite how the playstyle kind of was dictated by a lot of the choices that you kind of were seeing coming up, and I was just like, I didn't want to play the same thing everyone else was playing, so I thought I'd wait till the book came. Thankfully the book is so brimming with flavour, doesn't feel like it's quite the problem that I used to have with it. So right, let's get started. Right, so Orks in the teams format, what is their role? So apart from being one of the coolest factions in the game, they can be used quite an aggressive as sort of a pressure list. So whether that is your Bully Boys format, where you've got lots of mega knobs, lots of knobs with 2 turns of war, just filling the board, pressuring and not dying, and just really kind of choking someone's primary. That's very much where I saw Orks playing for me. There is obviously the other very kind of team-centric kind of list you can go with for them is the Green Tide, where you just fill the board again with bodies. They don't die quick enough, and people can't score if they're not on the places they need to be. I actively chose to kind of go the tar pit route, so the survivability through being elite rather than being a horde, because in previous experience I've had in Orks, when taking hundreds of models, I found it quite a back-breaking exercise. So that was a decision I made when I still think probably horde's a better approach. But for the element of speed, familiarity with the additions, kind of codex, it felt like the safer play for me. And the way I saw it, it was very much a list that could hit some draws, but also still score. So even for me, I wasn't very certain on a lot of the matchups. So to me, I thought, like, at very worst, I'll keep it quite close, get a draw, maybe sneak into a win. So my 2 practice games were into Alex from the team, and he was playing Canoptek Court, which is a very challenging kind of stat check of a list. First time I played it, I think it would have ended up being kind of a 15-16 to me, which felt quite high if I'd played it better, and that was very much a kind of gaining the experience. Then the night before the event, we did a quick little kind of go again, similar sort of result, and I just knew that I could push for a sort of a successful win going into that sort of list, which was nice to know. But unfortunately that meant that my matrix was skewed, that the only matchup data I really had was the Necron matchup, which isn't what you're going to see it on every table, but still it gave me a starting point to kind of try to gather and guess how my matrix would work. Right, here's the list. So I named it the very succinct, my milkshake brings all the knobs to the yard. And this is quite, it's a skew list. It's not necessarily how I traditionally would take an army, especially going for a singles format. Traditionally, if I was going to be building a list, I tend to like things in pairs. So if I was taking a singles version of this, I probably would have just the 2 units of mega knobs, because then it gives you some more scoring units, gives that element where you could have, maybe instead of having another unit of mega knobs in a truck, you have 10 normal knobs in a truck, and then you can get some more boys, or maybe things like some bikes. It's always about kind of the compromise. I think when playing singles, I like to kind of give myself enough scoring pieces that whatever matchup I go into, it's fine. But for teams, it's very much, I do that thing really well. So we've got Warboss in Mega Armor with the enhancement Teleporter, so that gives that unit Deep Strike. So this was a unit of 6 Mega Knobs with twin kill saws, led by that Warboss. In every game I rapid ingress this, so it was always their turn 2, I think. Maybe there was one that I turn 3'd it, but it was very much I'm setting these guys up so they get a very easy advance and charge in my next turn. And normally they deploy somewhere where There wasn't really an element where they could then kind of shoot them as well, which was helpful. And then we got 2 units of Mega Knobs with the twin kill saws again, with a war boss in trucks. These very much get pushed forward, do their thing. A war boss with Power Claw with 20 boys. Very much a distraction. This was very much a thing that was in my list as you throw forward all the Mega Knobs. Keep these as some scoring that will then, being OC2 models, especially on a lot of the center objectives, you've got the models that you could cover a couple of objectives with them. And then if they're still there in my command phase, it becomes sticky. Great. And it's very much a delivery method as well for a war boss that when in the war boss with the Power Claw has 9 attacks. So that's not something you don't want to, like, hitting on 2s, strength 9 going up to strength 10 going up to strength 11. It's a really nice break point. I found that was quite impactful. And then we've got a truck with 10 Power Claw knobs led by a war boss. Similar sort of thing. This is the slightly less durable version of the Mega Knobs. It's kind of their alternative. Like, it does a thing. It's very good at killing stuff. It's not as the strength isn't there, but it still does a good job at killing some pretty terrifying things. Then the Weird Boy. I don't think I ever deployed him as part of the unit with the boys, but you could. The way I like to use this guy is on a 2-up, he teleports, redeploys somewhere 9 inches away from enemy units. Perfect. So great for scoring. Similar to Snickrot, where he can move and then you pick him up and redeploy him. Handy. You've got 2 models that can do that. 40mm bases. Fantastic. Great to hide. And then the MVPs of the list, 2 squads of 10 Gretchen with a runt herd. So if they're sat in your command phase, now it's been clarified to movement phase, on an objective, you on a 4-up gain a CP. So this list is very CP hungry. Every turn you're going to be trying to give yourself a reroll to hit during the war, whether that's your turn or your opponent's turn. So those 2 battle rounds, you're going to spend 4 CP easily. So you need these Gretchen on those objectives. You need them safe and on an objective hidden. Then we've got 10 commandos. They've got a 5-up invuln once per game through the distraction grot. They've got a flamer. They've got the rocket guy. They've got a squig bomb to do D3 mortal wounds, which is pretty fun. And infiltrate. So they're stealthy guys, infiltrating. I always forward deployed them. Very much a pressure thing, kind of distraction as well. In one of my games, they charged into a Doomstalker just because it couldn't be overwatched, and it was like, cool, we've tagged you. If you want to actually shoot something else, you've got to walk away or kill us. Fantastic problem. And then 3 units of 5 Storm Boys led by a knob with a Power Claw. Fantastic little unit, moving 12. They can advance, they can fall back, advance and charge. Such a nice little unit that does a great job. Alright, so now let's look at the first round. So round 1, we went into a team called Multiple Orgasms. Lovely team of Irish lads that had some very distinct ideas of how they wanted to play the game. So I went into a guy called Owen. He took Ultramarines Ironstorm. So to me, my matchup of this, I didn't quite appreciate how different the list would be being Ultramarines. So a lot of points spent on to Gilliman. So my prediction originally was like, oh, it's an Ironstorm list. It'll be bad for me. They're just going to shoot me lots. He did have a couple of Gladiator Reapers. Thankfully, he had some Redemptors, which for a long time I would have been scared of, but these big targets do not like being hit by Mega Knobs. So this was my first matchup that I really didn't appreciate what my output could be. The cards were quite beneficial to me. We're playing Dawn of War deployment, so I could get to him quite quickly. If he wanted to get angles on me, he was very scared of me charging, so as a result, he stayed quite back and didn't have everything to bear, which I think probably cost him a lot of points. The interesting one was I killed Gilliman. I then got Bring It Down the next turn, or that turn, and it was very much like I was killing stuff for fun. It was bizarre. So this was the first game that I quite appreciated that on my opponent's turn, in the war, the Meganobs weren't going to die. As a result, when they swung back, if there was enough of them left, I would pop the reroll to hit strat, and it was just like, cool. They may only have 3 attacks each in the war. They've got a consistency. If you're hitting on 3s rerolling, you're going to drop maybe a couple of the attacks. So it was very much they were doing a thing. And the AP3 on the Twin Swords was very, very effective into the Space Marines. And so it ended up being a 17-3 win to me, which was a nice boost because I wasn't feeling very comfortable going into it. But looking at the other kind of matchups I could have had, it was pretty tasty. It was very rich pickings to me. And it set us up nicely for the next one. So we then went into War Masters B+. I played James, who brought a Synaptic Nexus NIDS list. It was a lot of big beasties, some Maleceptors, which I was terrified of. And then, unfortunately, this is deja vu. I put in the matchup, I was like, cool. They don't really have much of a survivability kind of thing for them, these bugs. So I was like, cool, this should be good. I should get a win. I'm not quite sure on how much of a win. And then we played through it, and it was terrifying that it worked even more than it did in the Ironstorm. So there was one of James's turns, I think it was turn 2, where he was about to swing. He'd charged into some of my Meganobs that... No, he'd not charged. He went to fight into one of my units of Meganobs, and I went, cool, this turn, because we were playing Purge the Foe, I was like, I'm probably going to kill 2 units in your turn. And this was only information that I'd kind of garnered from my first game, where I was like, realistically, unless they've got some really good AP and some mortal wins, they're not going to be killing these Meganobs quickly, especially in combat. And my word was my bond, and those 2 big beasties did go that turn, and it was nice to see, because it felt very much like how I expected playing the Big Hunt would be, but better. Like, the Big Hunt was a letdown. This very much felt like a solid one again. There was a lot of kind of shenanigans where one of his big beasties survived on a wound, which then delayed me a turn, which for one of my units was quite crucial. So it very much highlighted to me that these Meganobs are very good. If they go off, they kill quite well, but there's certain targets they'll really struggle into. And it was very much, if you don't quite utilise them well enough and work out the damage output required, so a bit of a spike in saves, suddenly that unit doesn't do the job, so then it's about committing the extra units. So for my second swing, I think I put in the normal knobs in with the Meganobs just to guarantee the kill, and it just then helped kind of commit sensibly to where I was, which was interesting. So I was starting to learn what the units could do, and it was challenging, but very much felt comfortable there. So, and then we went on to round 3, so went into the South Wales Alliance. These guys were terrifying to me. So Andy from Team Wales and Liam, one of my buddies from Team Wales as well, was part of this team. And John had played before. We played at one of the Cardiff team events, and he wanted revenge. So this was Canoptech Court. This looked very drawish to them, I think. So going into this, I knew that depending on how the game progressed, so if I went first, being able to stage forward and be aggressive and tag his 3 Doomstalkers, I'd be fine. If things didn't quite go to plan and the cards didn't quite line up, it could end up being very drawish. So I was kind of like, right, let's see what I can do here. I got to push forward. The map gave me very much a place where I could put one of my trucks comfortably in the middle. I think I went first in this game, if I remember rightly. It very much meant that then John couldn't quite get his wraiths forward enough. He didn't push with them aggressively enough as well, which I think if you're playing Canoptech Court into the Bully Boys, the worst thing you can do is to not be on the points first, because me charging past the points meant that wherever his guys ended up being was not where he wanted them to actually sit. So if we were fighting over the open kind of ground just behind the objectives, it suited me fine. The thing that I think I did quite well was tagging his Doomstalkers that he then held back and felt the need to... He couldn't really shoot the Meganobs because a lot of it bounced, so he started to just fall them back, which was great because for me, I think it was a mistake, but he did it, and it then meant that they went back, so then their targeting lanes they could actually achieve were getting worse and worse and worse. And so this, as a result, ended up being a 14-6. This is a matchup, I think, because I played quite a lot of reps into them with other armies, and then had 2 games within a week into Canoptek Court. And it was very much the same list, but when I played into Alex, he didn't have the Doomstalkers, so he actually had a bit more oomph to it. It was quite interesting. I think if I played it again, I would probably be a bit more assertive and aggressive with how I pushed early game, because getting them not on those points was crippling, and it's fascinating. It was very fascinating to play. So going into the Sunday, it was interesting. It was the first time I've ever been at an event and gone 3-0. Obviously, in teams format, a lot of those pairings are favoured potentially, or engineered in a way that it's not necessarily how it would be in a singles environment. So I didn't want to get too cocky. So going into the Sunday, we then went into Mind Goblins, and I went into Tom. Tom Green is a great Orc player that I've been aware of. We've never played. I saw this as very much, if we both play well, it's swingy, drawy. It could kind of go either way. The problem here was my list was very much, I've got all the big units. I've got one big unit of 20 boys. Tom had a different approach. I had 3 trucks. He had 5 trucks. So when the game kind of got into the flows, Tom went first, which I think was crucial. So in the mirror match, if you're going first, you need to do what Tom did, which is you push forward, you kind of show where you want to fight, which is on that line, and you try to get past it. This then meant when I was fighting him, on one side I did take over one flank and was successful. It was his weaker side, which was very much led by his mega boss with mega nobs. Whilst that was happening, the centre, he had 2 units of 10 boys and 2 normal units kind of filtering through. So he had more bodies, more weight of attacks, and those 5 trucks floating around. So where it was swinging, it looked kind of end of 2, like I was going to kind of edge like a 12-8. So it looked kind of favourable. I was trying not to take any risks. Turn 3, it all went horribly wrong. I stopped managing to make some saves. Tom was managing to push a lot more on the sides. By the end of it, the side that I'd beaten him on was my presence on the board. He then had trucks left over that he then could pen me in with, which was a great reminder of the biggest weakness that Bully Boys has, is that you move block them, they're going nowhere. They only move 5, and out of the war, they're moving 5. That's it. 5, maybe a charge after that. But if you aim that right, if you put a truck in the way, they're not going anywhere. And this then swung massively into a 20-0 loss. So as you can imagine, I was just a bit deflated there. I was like, I lost to a great player. But it was tough, because it was just like, his list, I think, for the mirror was better. I think it might have struggled into some of the other matchups that we went into, but it very much got me thinking, like, he only had 1 Stormboy unit, he had some bikes, which was something I had considered initially. So it gives you that nice choice. And I was like, this is cool. So there's a lot of learning there. So a bit deflated. We then went into the last round. We went into Shedhammer. So Adam Skinner is a man I played at one of the Battle of Britons, I think 2 years ago. It was that really horrible situation where Necrons just went, right, you see these secondaries? I'm going to take these secondaries. I'm just going to score them. I'm just going to sit here, score them, and then I'm just going to probably shoot you to death. And I turned up a chump that really didn't know quite how to build his list for the competitive scene in a teams format. Like, I was very inexperienced at this. I turned up with a Squigoth, to give you context. It did great, but it was very much people wailed on it. He said he really enjoyed that game so much because of, not necessarily because he won, but the experience that he was like, right, all weekend he kept seeing me and he was like, we're going to play Scrivo, we're going to play, you just see. So his team were there going, right, we've got all these pairings to do. We gave him, the Grey Knights player, the choice of me or another card. I can't remember who it was, but it was just like, he's surely going to take the other card, because the Orc matchup's not for him. So when we were originally doing our Matrix, they were like, it's Grey Knights, he's got 3 Land Raider Redeemers. In my head I just went, Redeemers. If he puts it forward and shoots me early before the war, I'm in trouble. This was ill-founded, unfortunately. So he had 1 unit of strikes, some Tech Marines, a bunch of Nemesis Dread Knights, and these Land Raiders. It was a really cool skew list, but it wasn't going to be a long fight. So, although Adam put up a valiant fight against me, all my charges just went in with the reroll strat. I was just picking things up. Things went to plan, and it was really nice to see the list working. But it felt like it was a mismatch, and it was just because Adam very much went, I want to play into John because I had so much fun the last time we played. So again, swapped some dice, had a good time, but it very much felt like I was never quite in danger with that one, which was cool. It was a lovely ending to the weekend where I had 5 great games. Right, so what did I learn on this weekend, other than bully boys are terrifying if played well? And I don't think I necessarily played them well, I played it competently, I think it's fair to say. So, my biggest thing is, most of my opponents said, when I didn't push aggressively in the first turn, because I staged, I played like a Space Marine player. They said if I'd been more aggressive, they think that I would have pushed through them quicker. So rather than being kind of the 14s and 16s, I could have hit the 20s. So this is an exercise I'm going to try myself, because I've spent the last year playing Space Marines where resources are light. I spend a lot of the time kind of being cagey, trying to make decisions whether it's worth it. This list, you just throw forward and just go, come on, deal with me. You can't deal with me, I'm going to roll you eventually. May not be in one turn, but it's going to get through. Going first in the mirror, that was huge. When we both rolled, first time, rolled a 2. Like, great, we both rolled a 2. Let's roll again. Both rolled a 5. That third roll, I didn't quite appreciate how pivotal it was, because whichever orc goes first, not only stages, but they're already on the point. So if the other person then charges onto that, they've got to get through them. And if it's a mega knock-off, it comes very much down to the dice, because you make your 5-up saves against the saws, and then a 4-up feel no pain into all that damage. It means for every saw that does go through, which is only a third of each of the attacks, so if you've say got a unit of 5, only 5 attacks are going through, and then only 5 of that damage is actually going through the feel no pain, you're killing just over a mega knob with a mega knob unit at full strength. Add the war boss in, mix it up a little bit, but then kind of a bit of variance there, and it becomes very, very swingy. So this is why when it was going well in some of my combats, it's because I'd put 2 units into one. So you very much have to threat saturate your own, like how someone else should deal with you. And it was quite challenging. So, and then the big one that I think it meant that I looked really good on the Matrix was checking the list before the pairings. So when being given kind of like the TLDR of it, like someone saying to me, Grey Knights, they got 3 Redeemers. I just went, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. That's a 1. If I'd read the whole list, I would have seen that there was a bunch of big Nemesis Dread Knights, the 3 Land Raiders, and then 1 unit of infantry. The board was mine to own. So that matchup was very much a 4 or a 5. So, lesson learned, I should take some time between the rounds. So as soon as we get the pairings, I should go through them, especially if it's only 5 lists, and then reevaluate how the Matrix should be. Unfortunately, I didn't give myself that much time, and that's on me, and I think that's where I let the team down a little bit. And as a result, my Matrix accuracy made me look like I was playing above where the expectation was, and the reality is the expectation was a lot lower. So if I'd been playing Space Marines, I probably would have had a better idea of where the matchups would have been. So this is just meaning that next time I play in a teams event, if I'm playing Orks again, I'm going to try to play the gaps in my matrices. So to me, even if I don't have that experience myself, if I can speak to another player that plays the faction, I think that can help. So say to them, what do you think this matchup's like? And then just get a vibe for it, because it won't be 100%. Like if someone's got a weird skew list, if it's the difference between obviously the difference between Iron Storm and Vanguard Ultramarines is quite different, but at the same time, getting the feel for how either of those works, if I haven't played them, it would give me a good vibe for it. So I think that's the key learning point, is just the prep was probably what let me down. I think I got enough reps into the army. Like the 2 games I played with the list gave me a really good feel for it. It's a very simple way to play an army though. So, and it wasn't labor intensive. It wasn't moving 120 boys around, which hindsight, I'm glad I didn't. I probably would have done better with it, but one of the highest scoring players of the weekend was Tom Higginbottom, who had taken the Bully Boys. So it sometimes shows that if you're focused with a list, it can play just as well as what other people might think is the better. So very interesting. I'm probably going to keep trying to play Bully Boys. So I've got an RTT this Saturday. I'm taking the exact same list again because I started kind of dabbling in the car home going, well, I could take Gazgul. And I was trying to figure out all these different things. I was like, no, I've played 7 games with this list. Why not 3 more? So the next episode of this, I'm very much going to cover how it went in the singles format. It's going to be a UKTC event as well. So the format of the terrain is very similar. There won't be the light boards that I was having to face on a lot of these kind of matchups, which, if anything, I didn't notice really. It was very much like, what's terrain? Let's just push it to one side and I'll just go through. Just leave that one in the middle for me to screen to like hide and stage a truck, maybe. Yeah. And then I think my next experiment after this will be to look at a cult of speed list. So, as I said in the first episode, my experience with Orks has always been cult of speed in 3rd edition, where I was very much trucks and buggies and bikes. I want to make that work. I don't have the expectation for it to be something that I can go and win GTs with, but I can go to an RTT, play 3 great games, surprise people with what I'm doing. It doesn't all have to be buggies and trucks. It can be trucks full of, like, for that turn of the war, why not have some Mega Knobs in that truck? It's the last thing I'll expect, right? They're not just Mega Knob trucks now, right? Right, so until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Obviously, if you've really enjoyed the show, hit the like button below. If you don't, I'm going to send a graph after you. And if you really, really, really love what we put out here on the channel and you've already subscribed, you can become a YouTube member. If you are a captain or higher, you will get some videos early. We put out some special ones for just the YouTube members, but also we put out a lot of the videos in a timed release, so a couple of days early, so you can get the insight a little bit quicker. And if you really do want to learn a bit more about some of the factions, if you become a chapter master on YouTube as well, you can become one of the mentees, where one of the guys will kind of take you under their wing and encourage you and get you to be as bang average as we are. So be that bang average 4-1 player with the Bully Boys. Until next time, guys, war.